We like to start your observation about the migrant issue, current migrant issue, your assessment in the country.
So for the situation of migration at the moment in Myanmar, it's quite a desperate situation because people don't have jobs here, or if they have jobs, they're jobs that don't really give them a proper livelihood. And so most families are looking to send somebody overseas in order to get a better job, better money. But because of the desperation, they're not able to take the time to make the decisions, to go to a place where it's safe, where they actually are getting better conditions. So many people are being exploited through that process.
What about the recent migration by the armed conflict?
So people are moving for many reasons in Burma, because of economic reasons, because there's conflict in the areas where they live, and they don't have a choice but to leave for safety. And that, of course, again makes it even more dangerous for people because they have to leave, and so they can't be looking for the information of where should they be going, what should they do before they leave. Safe migration is all about preparation, knowing where you're going, giving your contact details to people before you go, checking that actually this employer really exists.
Also, like you said, there are many different reasons for the migration, by the poverty and by the armed conflict, and looking for the job opportunity. And what in terms of the protection of their rights, protection of their, improving their life. Well, what do you learn here in the country for what we need to face?
So it's a complex issue because when migrants are moving, they move from this country to another country, and then
also internally moving.
And also internally. So internally it's slightly different because it's clear who is responsible. Within the country, then it's the laws of the country should be governing that migration and protecting their rights. But as soon as people cross the border, then it's the laws of another country. And so the enforcement is out of the hands of this government.
Out of the hand, or they are not willing, or they can afford. They can't do it.
It's unless you've got very clear lines of responsibility, it's difficult. So you could, and I think what's happening now is that the overseas employment law is being revised, and hopefully within that revision we'll look at making sure the responsibilities for, if recruitment agencies are sending workers to another country, that the responsibility to check that company is really giving proper conditions lies with the recruitment agency, and that they're liable if people are exploited in the country of destination. They are liable to take care of them.
So what about what do you expectation from the outcome of the good protection of the Burmese Myanmar migrant workers in the region, like Thailand, and Malaysia, and Singapore, and including Middle East?
If migrants were better protected, if migrants were better protected, you would see a different type of movement happening. I think you'd see people taking more time to make those decisions. You'd probably see a decrease in the migration to Thailand, where, as it's just been exposed recently,
decreasing?
It isn't decreasing, but if migrants' rights were better protected. You may see a decrease because people would choose to go to places where there are better conditions and better wages. So better protection from here would mean that migrants had more choices.
Well, in terms of the cross-border cooperation, cross-country cooperation, coordination in the region, and also our INGO, international body like a UN and ILO. Or do we have enough measure to protect our people?
No, not at the moment. Not at the moment. The Overseas Employment Act is an act which was made in 1990, so it desperately needs to be revised, and the government is looking at revising it and does have a draft and we've been sort of working with the government on that draft, but it will take some time for that to be fully revised. Bilateral agreements need to be made with all the countries that the migrants are being sent and enforced.
And would you also highlight something? If we, why a government should sign the International Convention to the migrants?
The International Convention on the Protection of Migrants and their Families is a very comprehensive convention. It covers not only the rights of documented migrants, but also of undocumented migrants, which, of course, from Myanmar is a big percentage of the migrants who leave are still undocumented. For the government to ratify that convention would show that they have really committed to changing the situation and making sure that migrants are protected from before they leave, through the migration process to when they return. So one, it would send a message to the migrants and their families, and two, of course, it would mean that laws had to be changed in line with the international standards.
Would you learn something to why this Myanmar government haven't a good reason they haven't signed yet?
Good reason they haven't signed. I think I would say that's difficult for me to say. I don't know. I mean, the convention unfortunately has only been signed by 38 countries, even though it's 25 years later, so that's a very small number. But the majority of those countries are countries that send migrants. So Myanmar should be more likely to sign it than you find that the countries that are receiving migrants and therefore have a lot more responsibilities to the conditions that migrants live in are less likely to sign. Yeah.
About this year, about this year, Migrant Day. Do we have any particular topic or slogan or theme?
So there is
for Myanmar.
Yeah. There is a network in Myanmar of the labour organisations and the civil society organisations who are working on migration issues, working to protect the migrants' rights, and they do pre-departure trainings with migrants. They provide information to them. They coordinate with the government when there are complaints. And that network is organising an event on December the 20th to celebrate International Migrants' Day, and their theme for that event is "We Are All Migrants."
Yeah.
So they want, I believe that they want to make people realise that migrants are not the other.
Yeah.
It's not somebody to look at
Yeah.
strangely.
Yeah.
Actually, historically, in
Yeah.
the history of humankind, we have all
Yeah.
migrated.
Yeah.
And today, most families have migrants in the family, and so migration affects us all.
And then we have many different patterns of the migration internally and across border, and also we have many different reasons of the migration, different causes of migration, and different patterns. What make you concerned most? In terms of the migration, the right of the migrant workers.
I think there's two areas. One is the recruitment. The recruitment processes and patterns which are the beginning of the pathway to exploitation in a way. If you don't have good recruitment practices, then you're setting up migrants to be exploited. Because both for internal and international migration, many migrants are going with people that they don't know. They're paying a lot of money, and then they're being put into places where the work is not of any standard. They may not be able to leave that work if they want to leave it.
You may be also aware of this, the common practice, becoming a common practice in Myanmar is that the employment of the underage children. Do you have any concern about this situation and suggest anything to improve it?
certainly, of course, it is a huge concern, and particularly in Myanmar, where the children are working
Yeah.
daily.
Underage.
Underage.
Under 13, under 11, under 10.
And fairly openly as well, you can also, which maybe is at least better that it's open. And the problem with any regulation for child labour is that you can force it to go underground. And of course underground is dangerous. So it's finding solutions where which are respond to the reality of the country at the time. And of course children need education, so it's finding ways that children can get that education but their families can still survive.
And then we have millions of migrant workers in Thailand. They might expect something good for the next year, about their rights and their labor registration and their legal status. And do you know what they should expect for the next year?
For the coming year? So at the moment, there are many processes going on for the migrants in Thailand. Many of the migrants have got documents which expire in March 2016. So it's really important that before March 2016 an agreement is made of what is going to happen to those migrants. The Myanmar government has been trying to provide some documentation to the migrants that are there, which they had hoped would be take them through to that period and past, but there has been some disagreement between the two governments on how that process should work. So really it's very important that an agreement is made and put into place very quickly. Otherwise, in March 2016, the people who have already been through many processes to get themselves documented will find that they're undocumented again.
Yeah, and in the bigger picture, to this migrant issue in the country, I have been working with the government very closely for years. But would you clarify the further cooperation in the bigger picture with the parliament, lawmakers, and also CSO in the country, and also the government?
So for the ILO with migration,
is there some things to need to improve?
Sure. For the ILO on migration, actually we've only been working on a migration in Myanmar since 2014.
Yeah.
And so it's fairly new. Because the ILO originally had the mandate to work on forced labour. Currently, there are forums where the government, parliamentarians, the CSOs, the labour organisations and the employment agencies come together to discuss migration. It's not a formal process at the moment, and I think that's something that everybody's looking into, to making it a more formalised process, so that there is a regular meeting that would happen between all the different sectors.
Bigger collaboration with many stakeholders.
Yes, many stakeholders. But I mean, it is happening informally at the moment. And it's a very enriched discussion that happens in those forums, because everybody's comes from the different sectors and is very knowledgeable about what's happening from their point of view. Obviously, of course, sometimes trying to find the agreements is not always so easy, but there definitely has been on that an acknowledgement that you need the views of all the different stakeholders in order to respond to this issue.
Okay, we summarize the issue, we summarize the current situation, we summarize all things migrants, internal migrants and cross-border migrants, and their rights and recruitment, and then the government protection, so international protection, which summarize. Is there any important fact you would like to highlight finally?
Just to go back one step to the recruitment, and I think it would be very important that the transparency in the supply chain is addressed here. It's an issue which is being looked at very closely in Thailand at the moment, with the shrimp peeling and those shrimps that are then being sold all around the world. but it also needs to start from the source country of the migrants as well. So you could have transparency clauses within the Overseas Employment Act. You could have a transparency clause within the Anti-Trafficking Act, so that the Anti-Trafficking Act also looks at business, so that you're making companies liable for the whole process of migration. And then, yes, making a holistic view of migration, so not just the Ministry of Labour looking at migration, but the Ministry of Labour working with the other ministries, because migration then affects the development of the country. And if it's managed well, it can, of course, improve the development of the country. People can go to another country, learn skills, come back with those skills, but they also need assistance when they come back to use those skills for the benefit of Myanmar as well.